I should see if I could get that setting updated so it auto records. So we don't have to keep worrying that we'll forget. All right, you guys see the agenda?
Yes.
We do, yep.
We will do a roll call. Kirsten Compitello, I am here.
Lydia Herring's here.
Val Chef is here.
Aaron Signorowitz is here.
All right, and we know that Greg is not going to make it and Jim will probably be joining us shortly. So our next item is citizen comments. We have nobody on the line, no citizens on the line right now. So our next item was the zoning project, but we could delay that a little bit until Jim is able to join and skip to the Parks Master Site Plan update first. And then circle back to the zoning, if that sounds good to everybody. The Parks Master Site Plan update. The steering committee has had its last meeting. The consultant is working on finalizing their report, and they will be attending the upcoming council meeting this Thursday on March 24th. It's been advertised. The consultant EPD will be attending that council meeting. We're starting at 6:30. They'll be giving a brief presentation of the overall plan of the recommendations that came out of that. And then they'll be going through a Q&A session. So any members of the public, including any members of the Planning Commission or anyone else, can attend that meeting if they have questions to ask or would like to weigh in. It'll then be open for public review for a period of time before it's formally adopted about a month later. So that Thursday council meeting with the Q&A, with presentation and then Q&A, that'll kick off a public review period. I haven't seen a draft plan yet. So I think that's supposed to be shared this week
Right.
in advance of that council meeting. I don't expect that there's going to be any surprises for the steering committee, but I haven't seen a draft plan. Have you, Eric?
No, I have not seen a draft plan. Confirmed.
So I don't have any major updates or anything else to share about what's in it, other than what we expected would be in it.
Can I jump in and add commentary?
Mhm.
I missed whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, week ago. I was unable to attend, but there was a little workshop where everybody got, I don't know, what was it, Kirsten? 6 poker chips, right? And you had to you had to take your poker chips, put on a board for what you wanted to see done. And that was the exercise was intended to help kind of in finalizing this plan to create a strategy for what it is that is a priority. Because as you know, it's a $13 million plan. So it's not, it's plan is it's misleading, I think, a little bit. To think that, plan usually think, oh, we're going to do all of this. Well, chances are a municipality with $4 million operating budget is not going to be able to do $13 million worth of projects, but it helps prioritize of all the stuff that was done and all the engagement that happened and all the work that happened and transpired. What are the things that if we had a time, talent, and treasure today, what would you like to see done? And I thought that was a really cool way to kind of finalize, you know what I mean, and gel the, you have this long grocery list, $13 million, but you only got $100 when you enter the grocery store. So what are you really going to buy? So I think it was a nice economic exercise. Like I said, I was unable to be there, but they made a little Google Doc so we could still participate and play our chips, if you may. So I thought it was good. It was good.
Will those priorities be shared at the public meeting on Thursday?
I don't know how it's going to be shared, Kirsten. We don't know because we haven't seen the draft.
We haven't seen the draft. I would expect that everything that was in that exercise, which is mostly what was shared at the public
Right.
event back in December. There were some refinements made, but I would say no real major changes. A lot of what was shared then should make it into the plan. And I would expect that those priorities will also be indicated in the plan as kind of a guide for the borough's next steps.
For
But
sure.
they're not, it wasn't an exercise to select what goes into the plan.
Right.
All of that $13 million worth of ideas should all be making it into the document. And then that prioritization exercise helps us identify our like 5 next steps. And that will immediately feed into what we allocate funding for next year. So that'll be the first step. We're council is preparing to approve a grant application to seek funding to start implementing some of those top priorities. But the priorities themselves, there are next steps. They're not the entire plan.
Yep.
So I would expect on Thursday that both of those will be presented, the full plan and the top priorities that were selected.
Hey, as a little administrative aside, I'm sorry. Is there a link to this agenda?
There was a link in the email that I sent.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sorry for the administrative rabbit hole here. So I see the November 23rd, 2021 meeting agenda. I see the zoning rubric, I see the zoning proposal folder, and I see the meeting minutes, but it's the February meeting.
Did I forget to attach the agenda?
I'm pretty sure you forgot to attach the agenda for this meeting. No big deal.
Eric,
but-
I
I'm
just
sorry
put
about
the
that.
link. I just put the link in the chat.
Oh, we got the
Click
chat
on that.
working. Hooray.
Should be able to get to
Okay.
it.
Perfect. I'm in. Thank
It's
you.
posted in the Google Drive.
I know, and I'm just didn't want to open yet another folder. I only have 3,755 tabs open, so you know, it's not like I can possibly manage one more. Anyway, no, we're good. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry for the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
No,
it was my
I-
bad if I meant to attach them all. So if I missed one,
Yeah,
I should have
worries.
attached the agenda.
no worries. Let me get out of my car.
I mean, if I didn't attach it, that means I also didn't send it to Charisma. Oops.
That's all right. You know, she didn't audit it very well, I'll let you know she didn't. So, all right, let me get out of my Carlton email and now I'm in the document. All right, we're good. Sorry for the delay.
All right, well, since we have Jim on the line now, Jim, we had skipped past the zoning project item to give you time to join, and we'd gone to our Parks Master Site Plan update. We didn't have a very large update though, so are there any questions, or Eric, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I don't. I was going to jump into another topic that we talked about last week that I got some interesting information on. And so this is not on the agenda, so we can push it to the end. But if we're waiting on others, you know, I can talk about it. It's an interesting little nugget of information on this GTRP grant.
We have Jim here now, so maybe we'll go back to that and we'll go through our joint items, and then we can finish up with other things if you know that they can choose to stay or not. So this is our joint Crafton Ingram Planning Commission meeting, and it is well timed because we received proposals for the zoning RFP last week. Those were posted on the shared Crafton Ingram Planning Commission Drive. And that was sent out to all of you. So hopefully everyone was able to access those. We got we received 3 proposals. And then what's on our agenda today, we wanted to talk through a little bit the rubric before we get into the proposals themselves. Our Crafton Planning Commission last month had talked about setting up this rubric. And so I did set one up and I shared it with all of you, but we haven't had a chance to look through it together. So that's the first item on this agenda, was just to look at that rubric and see if everyone agrees with it or if we have some adjustments we'd like to make. If there's anything that anyone thinks was missed that would be important to judge on, that rubric is an aid for us as we look through the proposals and see how we think they line up, you know, in comparison to each other and in comparison to the RFP. And then the next item in this topic is to actually talk about the 3 proposals that we received and determine who we would like to proceed to recommend to go to interview. The interview process itself, we have allocated an interview committee on Crafton side. The interview process is usually not an open meeting, so we can't have a quorum. So our interview committee includes a few people from Crafton, and then I have also reached out several times to Ingram to see who they would like to allocate. And the latest thought was that Greg Butler would be participating on that commission, or on that committee rather. That's the last thought I heard. I have not had a chance to hear from him directly, and he's not able to be here today, so I need to follow up with him when he has a chance. But that's the current interview process. So the planning commissions today will look through what we received and take a first pass, make a first recommendation for who we think we'd like to propose moving ahead to an interview, and then the interview committee will schedule that interview or series or interviews. So first of all, was everyone able to access the rubric?
Yep.
Did that work for everyone?
Yes.
And hopefully you can all see it on my screen. Were there any thoughts or questions? Do we want to look through this line by line, or did any of you have a chance to look at it and have things you'd like to start with?
So you guys go ahead. I can jump in later.
What I did with this is I made it add up to 100 because that's an easy number. I started by just listing out things that I saw in the RFP and then kind of organizing them by what they were meeting. Some of them are adherence to scope. Some of them are, other key factors, cost, availability of staff, et cetera. All of that. I then added a weighted score to identify some of the things that seem to be more important. And I adjusted that, which I noted in here after we saw all the proposals and saw that the costs, for example, were almost exactly the same between them all. So I adjusted that and removed the heavier weight for that because they're also similar. But we also had talked last time about how we may have additional items or perhaps, general level of comfort or intangible. So I left this last column to consider whether there's anything else we'd like to add, or does it make sense to just leave that as a, general sense of comfort?
The X factor. Yes. So I read all the RFPs. I went through and I made a Google sheet out of your Google Doc, and I made 3 tabs, one for each of the respondents. I put in some notes on the top, just as kind of my general take on it. I went through and scored each of them and summarized the score. I have not completed the row in red, but figured once we have that debated, I can move it to final. But I don't have any context as to what else should there be, right? You hit all of the things that seem to be salient to me. Is there community input? Is there experience? Is there, like all that sort of thing? And they all do it, right? They all do it. So it's just, your read of it and how well they do it based off of that reading experience they show, et cetera. So I don't have any critique. I don't know. Is that the word? I don't know. I don't have any feedback on the rubric. I think the rubric's outstanding because it gives you a gauge to go through and say, do they do these salient points? And this seems to me, based off of the RFP, like, yeah, these are the salient points. So I think I think it's you know, no surprise, you did a great job in my book.
I wondered if the colors meant anything particular.
Good question.
I just thought it helped break apart all of the text. I kept the top ones all were one color because they all fall under scope, basically. Clarity of project approach is kind of the whole scope. And then I called out each of these individual items or individual pieces of the scope, which is why that top one was weighted more. And then those kind of individual pieces are weighted less. That's why I colored it all one, but there's no real serious meaning behind that. It was just a visual aid.
Yeah, I think it covers the RFP well. The only thing I could really think of as far as the intangibles was whether maybe something like whether the consultant demonstrates that they have a vision or that they'll help us realize our vision, Crafton and Ingram's, based on how they present themselves in the proposals. But yeah, reading through them, I thought that they were definitely quality proposals from all three.
Lydia, I'll just debate that a little bit.
Sure.
And I, in a in a wholeheartedly academic function, right? I'm not calling out anything. As a, I'm a professional consultant. It's very difficult as the consultant to convey a vision, because they're not here to influence our thinking. They're here to implement our thoughts. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you're wrong in that. Do you get does your spidey sense show that they can guide us towards our vision? You know what I mean? Is kind of it. I can't ask the respondent to convey that, you should do this. I see this a lot in like our like diversity work, right? It's really important when you hire an equity consultant to hire someone who takes a position that is aligned with your vision. And if you don't have a vision, you need to be clear that you don't have a vision. You know what I mean? And like, you need help in that aspect. It's not that you're clueless. It's just, we don't know like what we should be doing. Right. So I really, I love the idea of it. If this becomes, if there isn't a clear winner, I think that is what you have is the perfect and like intangible question to push back to them is, where do you expect us to be able to go with it? Some sort of vision concept like you are describing there.
I kind of agree with both of you on this, and I think it could just be maybe a slightly different wording that we haven't figured out. But I think as much as we do want the consultant to listen to us, we also want them to guide us and to maybe help us think of things we haven't thought of yet.
Well,
right. We do want them to have a bit of vision and to come in with some best practices and not just simply be reactive and only do what we ask for, but to help us understand what we might want to ask for that we haven't asked for yet.
What are your thoughts, Jim and Aaron?
Well, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Eric has made a lot of good points, and I agree with. I think that you have to vet through those opportunities that are presented to us by the possible providers, and then we make our best decision. I'm confident, given the quality of this group, its experience and its capabilities, that, you know, we'll make the right decision. So I don't have a lot to add because unfortunately I lack a lot of experience in these processes. Having been, you know, I've been on the planning commission for several years, but we've not really experienced a whole lot. So I apologize for being green. Aaron, what would you like to add?
You're muted, Aaron. If you're
Sorry, I forget that I put myself on mute. I mean, I kind of have to echo with what Jim's saying. You know, we don't do a whole lot in Ingram as far as planning ordinances or anything of that nature. I can only go off what we just did with the multimodal plan that we did. And to me, you know, I'm sure that what I look at this stuff as more of a, you know, I want people that are more in our backyard than, you know, not to get into those proposals yet, but, you know, the ones from Cincinnati, to me, I want someone that's, you know, has the office next door, so to say. That's just how I think, but that's, you know, I don't have the experience you guys have.
That's a great point. So
And I think, you know, that could maybe fit partly under the availability of staff, as well as under that intangible. I mean, that last column might be something different to each of us.
Yeah, this may also group under project management in a way.
Mhm.
We could maybe include that in the project management and then weight it with one more.
You know, can I
instead
make
of
a
3, have it
suggestion?
4.
Can I make a suggestion about the row? I'm sorry. Finish your thought, Lydia. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I was pretty much done. My suggestion was just if we grouped it and then weighted the project management category a little higher, that may encompass what we're looking for without really justifying this vision or what X factor that we can't really explain, or if we feel like it's indefensible or something for the public consumption, then it seems to me to make sense to kind of categorize it, you know, group it
So-
up with project management.
Totally. I see that. I want to propose where, yes, that can be in terms of the project management is a more probably more experiential. I would counter that and say more about the municipal experience. Like, do they have municipal zoning experience in towns like ours, right? But I've read them all and they all do. So spoiler. But I think that's, you know, like, do you get a sense that they get our town more? You know, and I don't want to go so I want to ask this of you guys. Like, I have a, you know, kind of a strong opinion about this kind of stuff, and I don't want to lobby you guys or influence you guys, but I think that the X factor area could be something where it's for those that, like, I deal in rubrics and RFPs as a profession. So I think that the idea of the X factor line is something I always lobby for. I think that it's something that's really important, but maybe having some questions there, like what you were just talking about, Aaron, like, you know, do they show a commitment to our local community? You know, do they have the ability to understand our local community, right? Because if all their work is in Bakersfield, California, and the surrounding suburbs of Bakersfield, California, they don't know anything. They might know Crafton Hills, but they don't know Crafton, right? So that's what I'm, that's what I'm kind of suggesting is maybe this is, we put some kind of leading questions in there for everybody. I don't know, like I get a strong sense that everybody here kind of gets, I don't know, I like the rubric, that's my point. And maybe some assistance if need be, maybe we can put in some leading questions of like the X factor. Oh my God. Yes.
Well, good points, Eric. I mean, we look at their experience, to your points and Aaron's. What have they done that's similar to what we're looking for from them? What's their experience in communities like ours? And what's the results that they've come up with? I mean, it's, I think we could beat a horse to death, but it's almost, let's make sure that we align them with what we're looking for and what our situation in our situation. Right?
Yeah, I like I said, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, Jim. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, we got a combined 150 million years of business experience here. I think that we can just look at what they're doing. What have they done in the past? How does it align what we're looking for? How familiar are they with our types of communities? And if we can find someone that's close to home, as Aaron was mentioning, that's great. Yeah, and take it from there and look at the experience of their staff too and their availability.
Right, and it's not. I love that idea because it's not at the expense of going with someone who's really great but happens to be not locally like that. I think that's the idea of it. It's like it's all weighted. I think, Kirsten, if you haven't done rubrics before, you've done an outstanding job on this one.
No, I think even the descriptions and examples are meant to kind of guide you to what I intended these to mean, but there's room for interpretation in all of them.
Mhm.
We're each assessing how clear we think the approach was, how good we think each adhered to the scope, what we think their experiences and their availability is compared to what we're looking for. So some of these things can impact multiple categories as we each decide, are we satisfied with their experience? Are we satisfied with their availability? Are we satisfied with their project management approach? If we're fairly happy with the rubric, did you have something to add, Eric?
Nope, I'm all good.
Kristen, to back up what you said, we look at their results, we look at their reviews, and we go, and we'll also add that into our mix.
So my next question is, has everyone had a chance to do the rubric? Or do we want to do that now? Or do you all have a sense already of what your preferences are? Because we could just jump to that, or we could spend some time going through an exercise to each put together, go through this and then decide what each person's preferences are. Our goal tonight was to decide who we want to proceed to interview with. And we had initially left open the possibility of interviewing up to 3 firms. So we have 3. We could interview them all. We also could identify that there are 1 or 2 that simply stand out more to everybody. And we reduce the number of interviews that we need to have. Which would help with scheduling between the 2 boroughs and the consultants. That's the one thing I would say. If we have clear preferences and we have fewer interviews, we can move a little bit more quickly. But 3 firms is not too many to interview. So we can also decide that we'd like to, recommend that they all proceed to that.
Can
So-
we just back up for a second? Can I motion to approve this rubric? Or to recommend that this rubric be used for both communities as we interview? Just to kind of formally have it on the books as the planning commissions are behind this rubric.
Second that.
Sure, agree.
Okay, thanks.
And as far as Kristen, what you said about interviewing 3, we wanted to interview 3. you always gain experience and knowledge, and it brings other questions to mind when you're interviewing people, even if it's someone that, you know, in your heart or in the back of your brain, you said, well, we're not going to select this individual, but you gain knowledge.
I think that's one of the questions I'd like us to all go through tonight, because I think our planning commission discussion will be slightly different if we would like to really measure them and decide to narrow it to one or two tonight. And if we decide that we would like to, that we are upon review all fairly comfortable, or all think that the three are fairly similar. If we decide sooner tonight that we'd like to recommend that all three go to interview, then maybe we want to spend more of our discussion talking about what kinds of questions we have for all three of them. This is really a group discussion, because I don't want, you know, the process for what goes to the interview to be just by me alone. I want this to be, you know, our whole group to weigh in. So I'd like to maybe start with just the group sense of, after having looked through the three of them, do you have a sense of who ranks higher? Do we want to have that conversation yet? Or is there something else we're more comfortable starting with?
I can put myself out there and you guys can beat me up and we can start there. That helps. So like I said, I'm analytical, so I, did the spreadsheet and formulated the roles and calculations. So my scores, if you guys good with that?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. So I've got an 81, got an 81 out of 100, got a 78 out of 100, got a 93 out of 100. Okay. So my rationale, so if this was the home and garden channel, where they go cut one, I can cut one easily. I don't think that what I'm saying though is don't interview him, because to what Jim said, I've seen some terrible proposals from some great consultancies. You know what I mean? My take on HRG was they had a really cookie cutter proposal. It was, they were the least expensive. And I think they do it because they're a machine. That was my take on them. They're a machine. They do this all the time. Every one of these three is going to do the job. They're going to do it well. They're all going to do the job well. I don't think any one of these is non-responsive. Not one. So it's just a deciding of, which one's the best fit. It's not a matter of who can do the work. They can all do the work. But HRG seems committed to the region. On project governance, which is a big thing to me, you get a sense that they've done this so many times. It's just lather, rinse, repeat. And that's worrisome to me. That was the notes I put in. I'm reading my notes. They don't have a sense of what the public engagement really looks like. Like they don't. Like, how does that impact their plans? I worry about that. Again, they really appear to be very highly technically competent. They're not creative in their proposal, and not all creative in their proposal. I love the fact that a little note here. Yeah, if you pull it up, it's not worth pulling up. But if you pull it up and you go to their little like accolades, like they won the design firm of the year, whatever award, and it's like the reverse image is pasted in the document. Like it's like, yeah, they're not creative. They're cutting and pasting from stuff they have. It's like they have done this a lot, and we're just going to be, a notch on a belt. Again, hopefully that design award is intentional. The zoning company, they were the lowest score, just in terms of how it lies. They lost 1 point. They lost 1 point because they were the most expensive. They didn't give us $1,000 off. You know what I mean? I'm offended by that. I don't know, personally. Give me $1,000 off. If I say my budget is 100 grand, come in at, $12 underneath that, but I don't care. But don't say it's 100 grand. It's just because then I know that it's just gaming it. Make it look like you're playing a game. I was really troubled by, and Kirsten, close your ears. Leah, close your ears. I was really troubled by their, to me, overemphasis on transit-oriented development. And I know that that's offensive. That's deeply offensive to the two of you. But it was over the top. Like I felt that, it's like, well, no, we're not a busway town. We just happen to have a busway. Like I was really confused by that. That was my take on it, my personal take on it is, I'm a big fan of, community-oriented development, but I don't think our success and failure lies into the buses that may or may not roll to Pittsburgh. So that was my take on it. We're collaborating with you guys in Ingram, the shopping center, and there's great understanding and zone companies, zone co, whatever it is, great understanding of their bid, but I really got a sense that they were just treating our communities as two Crafton, Ingram as the shopping center communities. I didn't really get a sense of how they were going to buy product this, like split the product up to this as being a, it's like, oh, we're going to do the exact thing over in column A, we're going to do the exact thing in column B, and there you go. I don't know, maybe that's true, but I also know that you guys are a dry town. Drives me freaking nuts that we can't put a bar on your side of the shopping center, right? But there's a lot of things about your side of the town that seems like you guys need to be treated really differently, like really differently than Crafton is. Crafton's an open cater town. I can walk my dog and drink beer. I mean, that's a true statement. So I worry about that kind of mentality of, oh, there's two side-by-side communities, are both the same. They're going to the same thing. It's good. We're going to get two same plans for, shared vision, shared community town, but two different towns. There's a lot of jargon in the community visioning, which is fine. That's what you do in a proposal. The one for each community, really, they describe something on page 35. There's no page 35. But how the community visioning works and has been successful, I felt like it was an appendage. And that's why they scored low. Like they describe a lot of really, oh, we're gonna have a pizza and pour night, something like calientes. I mean, that's fine, but I don't think that it was almost homage to. They said it's not a checkbox, but I got a sense that to them it was a checkbox. It was pretty strange. So it was own company, and then Clavin scored the highest. They did. They're woman owned. I have a real desire to help disenfranchised businesses. That's just me. I do a lot of equity work in my day job, and I just, they have a local feeling. They're still not the cheapest, but everything was within $3,000. So that's not fair to say, I guess. I like the fact that they were granular in their rates. They're very granular in their rates, not just like overall showing their hourly rate and generally what they're going to do, but they were granular in what their rates are and who you're going to get on the project. That hit home with me. It's like, yes, we're committed to you. You really get a sense that the principal will be involved, even though the principal's not the PM. You get a sense that they are all about the community. I get a sense to what you were talking about, Aaron. I got a sense in reading that proposal is, yep, they get us, they are us, they live here, they know here, they may not own a house in Ingram, but they know what it's like to own a house in Ingram. That was my take on it. And I really took that away as like that one hit home. That's why they scored so much higher than everybody else. They seem creative. They know how much they seem creative and know how to treat projects individually, even with two product deliverables. I got that sense from their proposal. They have some lack of understanding on the context of the shopping area. Just because side-by-side community kind of content. But for a small project, I don't expect them to do a whole bunch of due diligence for $100,000 project. I mean, seriously. So I'll dismiss that. That was the one thing that cost them, if you will. So that was my take on it. So I don't know if everybody wants to go through that sort of thing, but that was my relation of it. You know, I came up on a points basis, HRG 81, zoning company 78, so they're close to the same. Clavin by far ahead. Now, I still would recommend, I'm not on the interview committee. I would still recommend that all three get interviewed, because HRG, like I said, just because they got a mill for their proposal writing process, they may be really good in what they do. Same thing for zoning company, like their proposal may be jargon heavy, but the one thing that really struck me as problematic about zoning company, which would come out in an interview, was here, I'll read it. A whole lot of people, a whole lot of companies, a lot of examples. Don't know who does what example, but no one is in charge. They don't describe that there's somebody in charge and there's going to be one point of contact that's going to make this all happen. But I'm going to pull on this cavalry. They have like 19 resumes. This cavalry of resources to support this effort, right? It definitely turned me off in the proposal, but they could have could be just the proposal writing, because you have three firms. It's very difficult. I work with partners all the time. It's very difficult to combine that into one kind of a common thread in a proposal, but it could come across very well in an interview. So that's what I said. That's my full report on the rubric. And I'll put it in chat if you guys want to see it.
I thought that was excellent, Eric, and I'll go next if we don't mind. I'll be a little shorter than you, because you covered a lot. I had some different takes than you, actually.
Yeah.
But also a few that were the same. We'll start with HRG, because that one will go pretty quick. I had pretty much the same reaction you did. I didn't really have any fault with them, but I wasn't inspired. And I did notice some typos, and those are pretty common in proposals. I know I've made them myself, but it did overall, it felt a little stiff and it felt a little cookie cutter. So they didn't lose any points for anything particular, but they didn't get extra. They didn't get top points just for some of those things that I felt like they were missing something, but perfectly adequate. Moving on though, my reactions to ZoneCo and Clavon do differ from yours. Clavon got the lowest score for me, and the biggest issues with that, because I do like some of the things that you liked about them, and I do like that they're a woman-owned firm, but the clarity of their overall approach I found very hard to follow. They lost points for me on that. And then their municipal experience, the experience that they showed a lot of experience in a lot of things that are not zoning. They really did not show, in my read, they didn't show that they had what we need for this project. And they showed some zoning projects that they'd done in a military context. I thought that was odd that they wanted to feature so many completely different types of projects, completely different scales, landscape design projects, plaza design projects, but I didn't see the zoning qualifications. That and the clarity were the two biggest items that held them back for me, that dragged their score down. There were a few other minor things. I really did not rate anyone differently by schedule or cost. They all got equal points for those. I really don't see any difference between $1,000 in a total project, which will be split by municipalities, so 500 each, and then split again between the grant. So really that's a $250 difference. I didn't see that was a factor that differed between any of the three proposals. And availability and experience of staff also was, fairly well performing across all. They all three seemed to recognize in my read, all three absolutely recognized that Crafton and Ingram are different, and they did clearly identify that they were doing two different sets of ordinances for both communities. They also all did seem to indicate that some of the engagement may be shared, which is not initially what I would have looked for, but has been what I've heard from Ingram. And I don't know if Aaron and Jim have other thoughts on this, but from other conversations I've had with Ingram, it seems like they're on board with that. So I didn't see that was a distinguishing factor between any of the three, but the two that really stood out were that clarity of approach, which I just was not following it from Claiborne, and the municipal zoning experience, which I was also just not seeing. That did not convince me. On the other side, ZoneCo, I was a little surprised to see so many partners on that team. But reading through the proposal, I found it to be the most clear. So I gave them full points for that. And then also getting down into municipal zoning experience, that's what they do. So I found that they had the strongest showing, even a bit better than HRG. They had a really strong zoning portfolio. It is a big team, but wading through it, it seemed fairly clear that ZoneCo would be leading the zoning, and they have local experience, and they have done zoning projects, even if they're not local, even if they're not based locally. They have project partners that are based locally, and they have done local zoning projects, which again is I was not seeing that from Claiborne. Their zoning qualifications seem to be best, so they got full points for that. They had, again, they did have a big team, and it was a little surprising at first, but they have a point in there that indicates what the partners are doing, and included their partners in the appendix for some of the more minor roles, largely for engagement. But they included the ZoneCo leads in the project pages in the core proposal. So that seemed to be a pretty obvious, org structure, that ZoneCo would be leading the project and leading the zoning, and they had clear qualifications for it. So that was my read of this. And that's what I ended up scoring. ZoneCo had the highest score, HRG was the second, and Claiborne was struggling, mostly because of that experience. Just wasn't what I thought was the right experience for this. That was my assessment. And we can go around to everybody. But again, just like the others have said, if the group thinks that all three are worth recommending to interview, then we can certainly do that. And we can be as detailed in our assessment of each as you all want to be, or we can, focus more on highlights and then the questions that we'd like to ask. So this is really I leave it to the group to decide.
Anyone else have any comments?
I'm in favor, first of all, to one of Kristen's questions. I'm in favor of interviewing all three.
Can I motion to interview all three as our recommendation? Because I think we all feel that way. So someone wants a second, and we can discuss it and see if we want.
I second. I'm Jim. I second.
Discussion.
Is everyone in agreement that makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, as zone company's proposal now. I mean, they did work in Dormont. So, and there's the municipal project manager is Ben Estelle. I mean, let's talk to him, right?
For sure.
They
And
include
Dormont
the
is like-
reference.
Sure, that's like cookie cutter, Dormont. Obviously, South Bend is bigger. I don't know Reynoldsburg, Ohio, but let's talk to them. we here in Ingram, and Aaron knows, as you guys probably know, we selected a subsidiary or a department of Mike Baker, for our grant design, for our design work. And when I first saw it come in, I said, "Oh, Michael Baker, I've known him for 100 years. They're huge." But then they have a small outfit that did work in what we're looking for. So, I got over that initial thought process. We're looking at, there's Hampton Township here also. Just going through, there's Marysville, Ohio. So there's Bowling Green, Ohio, which is bigger than we are. But anyway, I'll stop and I'll say, if we interview all three, we'll learn.
Yeah, I'm open to interviewing all three. I know last time we were planning to interview 3, but only 4 proposals came in, and we just decided to interview all 4. So it's kind of a similar thing where it's like, a few more interviews, one more interview than you were really anticipating, but at least then you really know your choices. You've run them all to ground.
Yeah, I think we've made and seconded a motion, so we'll interview all 3. I know we had some time constraints, so I wanted to put that out there in case there were clear forerunners and we wanted to shorten the process. But interviewing all 3 makes a lot of sense if there's not, if there's enough that we like about all 3. Does anyone else want to share or discuss their thoughts or their ratings? Or would you rather share questions or, additional items that you would like the interview committee to ask about? Since we are going to interview all 3, if anyone doesn't want to share their ratings, you don't have to, but you're certainly welcome to. And all of that will be passed on to the interview committee.
Oh, I want to take back my link. Just kidding.
Well, as far as questions, we can, a brainstorming session for questions could go on for quite a while. We can do our own individual brainstormings and then, stick the yellow stickers on the wall through a next meeting and come up with, group the questions properly and then come up with a concise and intelligent group of questions if you want.
Well, I don't think that we're going to wait for the next planning commission meeting. This joint planning commission only meets quarterly.
Right. Yes, right. I
These
agree.
interviews will happen in the next few weeks.
I agree.
Even Sam Nucci asked to try to focus wrapping it up before middle of April.
Okay.
Which also would be Crafton's preference to move faster. So I think both boroughs are on the same page about trying to schedule the interviews in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Which would even place them before the next Crafton Planning Commission meeting. So we can discuss questions tonight. We also don't have to, we're not limited to only submitting questions during this meeting. Any of you can individually share questions, through email to be passed on to the interview committee.
Right.
So you're right, we don't have to go through all of it tonight, but if there is any further discussion we want to have tonight, we can have that.
Sure.
So I put one question in, and I put it into the Google Doc. I think that needs to be asked. Anytime you put a budget, and I appreciate this. Anytime you put a budget into your request for proposals, of course, everybody's going to miraculously respond with exactly your budget, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it'd be a fool not to, because everyone will, right? Let's go with flow. But was it a ceiling? So are we not going to get their best work because they really would do an exceptional job? And here's the 10 things that we're leaving out because of this, right? And we would we would normally charge you $62,587. We're HRG. We do this for a living, and everybody gets charged 62,000. But because you put it in here, we charge you 50,000. That idea, right? That would be the one thing that strikes me as, you know, really important to ask.
I think,
Does that make sense?
you know, we certainly could ask that, but I think it's perhaps a little too bald a statement to get an honest response. And I mean, who's going to say, yeah, we're giving you
I do all the time.
less than subpar work? Nobody's going to say that.
I do all the time. I do all the time. I lead with it.
This last question that I just added kind of goes to that, but is a formulation that I've heard used more.
Passive aggressive. My
Is
opinion.
there anything we missed that you think should be added to this, or is there anything we missed that you think we didn't think of? We did get this budget 3 years ago, and so I don't think that it was in any way unreasonable. I'm pleasantly surprised that they all stayed under it and nobody pushed a little over.
Well, they
Honestly,
couldn't.
I expected that.
It's the RFP. You put a budget in the RFP. If they give you a $1 over, they're non-responsive and they can be eliminated. You're forcing them. That's the way that that's the legal parameters of RFPs.
We didn't quite phrase it as a ceiling though. We phrased it as this is the funding allocated.
Yeah, that's
You know,
passive
in
aggressive.
planning, it's always understood there are multiple years of financing, and planning is it's a very high level kind of field. It would not have surprised me at all, and it would not have been unconventional or outside of legal bounds if any of them had come in slightly over. But I was kind of a moot point because I was pleasantly surprised that they all stayed firmly within, you know, under the budget that we said we had. Crafton has actually budgeted more than that. We were prepared for a little bit more. But I think whether we ask did the budget constrict your response question, or we asked that other wording, or we ask both, I think that's a useful question. It'd be interesting to hear them tell us what professional advice do they have?
Agreed.
Because we put out an RFP, but they're the professionals, and we want to know what they're going to offer us. And that there may be things that weren't in the RFP that they would like to bring up. That'd be an interesting question to ask. Going to the previous point too, I think a good one to ask would be who will be the project lead or leads, not just in the project manager, but ask about who will be the people that will be seen regularly, who will be the people who will be the boots on the ground. Because all of these had teams of people, groups of people. And, we can anticipate that there will be maybe 1 to 3 who are the actual people we see regularly. It would be nice to know, are they proposing that their project manager will be more just project accountant, keeping things running in the background, but somebody else will be the lead on the ground? Are they, is their project manager going to be the one most intricately involved day to day? It'd be nice to know that next level of detail of who are we going to be dealing with every day. Right, and then the interview committee will be myself and Coletta and Lydia. Coletta and Lydia, who were both on the previous interview committee back in 2019. And then I had reached out to Ingram about who they wanted to be on the committee, and the response I got was Greg Butler. I'm not sure if Aaron or Jim, if either of you had any discussions about that or anything else, but that was what I had been told last, was that it would be Greg Butler for Ingram.
Did not know that.
So I had one more on there just for shits and giggles. I think that I think that the none of them were really clear on, well, I'll just leave the questions as it is. I think it's really good for them to, each of them, because I know that this was a big differentiator between not going with the proposals that were on the table from the past. Again, perfectly experienced and adequate contractors. These are perfectly experienced and adequate contractors. The big differential that we wanted to really make sure that we hit home on is the community engagement piece. So I would want them in an interview to explain to you, what does stakeholder engagement look like for you? How have you benefited in your projects from the engagement of stakeholders? Because then you're going to force them to give lived examples of what that means. Or is it really just this is a technocratic exercise in updating code to a policy manual book 123 with a little bit of feedback on the characteristics of the community, and we move on? I don't know that. Anyway, I think it'd be good for them to outline for you what does that look like?
That's a good question. Well, again, this is really open to the whole group here. We can go on as long as we want or not as long as we want. We have the joint Ingram and Crafton groups both here, and Aaron and Jim, since you're both on the line, do you have other thoughts about the interview process? I had reached out to Sam and Greg about how much Ingram wanted to participate and whether they wanted a council member on the committee, and the decision from them was that they were going to put forth one person. But if there's interest from you, I mean, that's something you could certainly let us know. Although it would be a conversation that you'd need to have with your borough. But we would like to move forward with starting to set up interviews, see what dates are available for the members of the interview committee. So if either of you have thoughts on who should be participating for Ingram, it would be good to get those addressed quickly. Or if you're comfortable with the interview process that has been outlined.
Kristen, I think that Aaron and or I should be present in the interview process, and that's something that he and I will have to discuss with Greg and or Sam. Agreed, Aaron?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, we'd have to see what they say, but I think it would be a good idea to have representation there.
Sure, it's their final decision, but I think that you and I can tell them that we need more than Greg on the interview committee.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a conversation that you could have this week and get back to us? Because I was hoping to be organizing some dates that work for everyone and be reaching out to these firms early next week.
Absolutely, Kristen.
Okay, that'd be great.
I can send out an email after this.
You want to do that, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll do that for us.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Right. Well, did we want to stay? Did we want to stay on this topic? Did anyone have, further discussion or reviews or assessments or questions to discuss? Or are we all comfortable with where we're at now? We're proceeding to interviews and you're relatively happy to pass it on with the recommendation that the interview committee move on with all three. We have in this rubric document, Eric has started the questions right there. So in the meantime, if anyone does think of additional questions, they can always be added into this.
Cool beans.
We're moving on.
Sure.
All right. Okay, well, that leads us to, we already talked about the Parks Master Site Plan update for Crafton. Crafton Planning Commission, we have no citizens on the line, but we'll announce it anyways. We have a vacant position open. The applications are available on the Crafton website. The application process has been streamlined for all of our boards and commissions. There's one single application for to apply to any of them, and it's a one-page application that's posted on the borough website. There was some language stating that applicants need to be residents of Crafton and qualified electors. That has been determined as outdated language. We've removed that from the website and from the application. The only requirement to be a member of a board or a commission is that people be a Crafton resident. So that's our announcement of our vacant position. We'll move on to the review of the November joint minutes.
I'll motion to approve unless we want to go over them.
I am trying to stop sharing so I can switch my screen. Did anybody have any questions or comments on those November minutes, which was our last joint meeting?
I don't.
I didn't have any questions. I'll second Eric's motion.
Okay, motion to approve those minutes is passed. The next item is the review of our Crafton February minutes. And just so I don't forget, I think here's the point at which this is one of the last items on our agenda. And then Eric had some additional discussion that he wanted to get into. That might be interesting and relevant to Ingram as well, but it is a discussion that originated with Crafton. Is that right, Eric?
No, it's definitely for you guys a little bit. So yeah, hang out for 2 minutes. I know I talk a lot, but humor me.
Okay, well, yeah, it's the funding, right? It's grant sources.
Yeah, so I met with blah blah politician, blah blah pointy. So a couple of things. November, I guess. We talked about eco districting. I just made it a verb, right? This weekend, there's a eco district open house. I don't know that I can make it. If you guys are interested, I can get you guys the information, that sort of thing. So let me see if I can find it. Eco district.
Eric, is this on Friday and Saturday?
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure you're connected to all this crap. I'm clueless.
So
Eco district workshop, 10 till 2 Friday, Saturday. It doesn't say what time it is on Saturday. Yeah, I guess it's 10 till 2 on Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturday. It's unclear. This lady's name is Tate. She's the local government policy manager for the PA Department of Community and Economic Development. So it's in Millvale. It's a thing. There's a sign up form if anybody wants to go. Like I said, I'm a maybe, right? Friday I can't do that. Are you crazy? But Saturday maybe. So I don't know. I just wanted to pass on to you guys, but
Eric, do you have the link up? Do you want to put that in the chat?
yeah, I can put that
I had found it and I'd only found it on Facebook. But if you have a better link and can share that.
here.
I will say I am planning on going on Friday. I can't go on Saturday because of a council conflict. But if anyone else is able to go, I wasn't sure how much of a training it would be. It sounds kind of like a community day to work on the Millvale Eco District and clean up their park, but
So this lady felt like this was a event for other people, right? Oh, it's already at capacity. This changed. I'm so sorry. I wasted all of your precious time. It's no longer. Yep. Oh, there's still room on Saturday. So Friday's full. So Saturday is not.
Well, I don't know if I'm attending Friday then, because I had looked for an event sign up and the only thing I found was Facebook, and all it had was a hit,
Yeah, this
hit
is
the going button. And I don't think that counts as an official registration.
right. So yeah, so this is it. This is the link that I just posted in the chat. It's food oriented. I love it. It can't be Pittsburgh if it's not about food. God bless America. Anyway, so yes, you can slide all the stuff in the world that you want. So if you're like I said, if you're interested now, so phase 2 of this, right? We talked about eco districting and the GTRP grant is out. I met with people in Harrisburg, bloody blah, names I don't care about. Really nice guy though. Holy crap. Welker. I met with Welker. Welker's a super good dude. He said that GTRP last year had 430 applicants, $86 million in requested funding. They had a kitty of $10 million. So I said, could we use GTRP to do some sort of multi-municipality planning study kind of thing? Because I don't think that we're ready for, personally, I don't think that we're ready for eco-districting kind of stuff yet. I think we need more like planning around this, like an appendix to thrive kind of a thing, right? That's kind of what I was thinking about, right? So, nothing's committed in stone, but anyway, 10 million out of 86 million is actually funded last year. So he said, listen, I think he said when he never heard anything called eco district before. So he said, I'll get back to you. So we met again. He learned all about eco. He said, really interesting. But the purpose of GTRP is really about a tangible outcome. So if we wanted to do something with like the Creek Trail and connecting the Creek Trail to McKees Rocks to Carnegie, that is definitely what GTRP is for. We talk in Crafton. You've heard me talk about this last month. The dog park idea, boom, funded. Great idea. You guys are implementers. You get Wayne Fontana on board. You're going to get that money. No, the idea of using GTRP for something that's kind of intangible is probably a stretch for them. He said, but and this was Keith Wenner and Greg Welker. Keith Wenner is the executive director from Fontana's office, and Welker's the CFA from CED, right? So they're in our court. They'd love to hear from us. Any idea is a good idea until it's a bad idea, and they'll help us figure out whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, right? So there is definitely a conduit, and these people are like, oh, Crafton, oh shit, yeah, we'll talk to you guys. Like it was very I deal with people like this all day long, and for a government employee to be like, yeah, you guys are on the list. Yeah, let's talk. What do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? So again, I don't know what it is. If we want to recommend something, I think eco districting is a really, really strong concept. I think it creates boundaries for how we manage our municipalities and guidance. You know what I mean? Not boundaries, but guidance. But I don't think that GTRP is it, but they're open to it. They just don't see it. So if we want to get creative, I don't want to get creative. I don't have the time.
Well, I think that was a great thing to look into though. And thanks for doing that. An eco district planning this grant awards cannot exceed $250,000. That's way more than we would need for an eco district planning project. So we could probably use something like this for something that's more expensive and
Right.
look to smaller sources for an eco district planning consultant who would which would be a smaller project anyways. So it's not a bad thing that that's not going to qualify for this right away. We can, we can recommend this to council. I don't even think we need a recommendation. You could just send it to council to look into, but you can make it a formal motion to recommend if you like.
I recommend personally, and I would like for you guys to throw me off of this. And this is Jim and Aaron, this is not for you. I recommend for the two of you to approve my motion to recommend that council looks at GTRP to fund the dog park in Crafton, so that we can make whole on people's aspirations to have a dog park in Crafton, because I think that's a community-based thing that needs to get done, and it's perfect for this. $65,000 already lined up, already defined, ready to go. Just press play before the end of May.
That's as defined in the master park site plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
You would
called
like us-
dog- it's called
I'm a little
dog run.
undecided here. I am happy to support that. I also know council's already aware of this, and the finance committee is looking into various different things that we need funded and which thing best fits each grant. And so I guess I'm happy to second that motion or that recommendation. Did you call it a motion or just a recommendation?
Well, I'm motioning that we because we can't do anything. We're just jokers, I'm motioning that we recommend to council that council moves forward with GTRP application for the dog run, which is 0.17.5 in the master parks plan that we haven't seen yet.
So again, this is absolutely just for my own conscience, because I don't want to contradict myself if with awareness that the finance committee may have already decided to allocate this grant to something else. I am happy to second your motion that we recommend that they look at this dog park.
And like I
with that.
said, oh, sorry.
I was just voting on the motion. And I said yes. So I'll put that in the notes.
And in a spirit of healthy competition, so it's okay. I'm sorry. Motion passes. Can we do all that kind of governance stuff? Great. Okay.
Eric, can you go in and add the two names to the GTRP line item?
Yeah. I'll put them in.
Greg Welker and something else.
I just want to. So in full and healthy disclosure, Jim and Aaron, GTRP, Wayne Fontana is promoting this grant. It's due by the end of May. It's a healthy competition for Greenways Trip. There you go. Kirsten just put it into the chat for you. The point is it's open to all of us. So let's attack each other, right? Let's fight it out, right? I'll meet you in the street, But no, I think it's good. I think everybody should. And my point is, in saying that is, I think that your municipality should apply for some. I think the fact that it's only 86 and they have 10 million, I think it should be 150 million in applications and they only have 10 million, because that sends a message to the legislatures that maybe they need to fund this a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because like you're killing people, right? This is such a popular, important thing to so many communities. I mean, this isn't a dog run in Crafton. It's not political. It's like we need one in this valley. We all have dogs. Not all. Lots of people have dogs.
Some have cats.
Some have cat. Well, I don't know if there's a cat run. What we could support a cat cafe, but
Cat does not need a cat run.
yeah. But you understand my point. Like we should be pushing our Wayne Fontanas of the world to be advocating to put more into successful products like this, competitive products like this, because it's a good thing. So anyway, off my soapbox. Get on with your
What
night.
about our local guy, DC? Is he involved?
Dan Deasy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dan
He's
Deasy's
very, I mean, I don't know if it doesn't sound like Eric talked to him about this specifically, but Dan is very involved in Crafton. I assume also Ingram, he's invested in our communities. He supports a lot of the projects we've been doing.
okay,
So-
well, I just brought him up because Eric had mentioned Fontana. And I, you know, I don't know how many individuals get involved in something like this application, but you would think it's something that DC would involve in too. I don't know.
DC and Fontana both wrote letters of support for the zoning project. I'm sure they
Right,
would be
right.
happy to support any other project that we wanted to take on.
That's no surprise. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, Dan Deasy and I, we're good friends. Not. I feel really bad. I really feel really bad. He's one of those real touchy-feely guys. He came up to me at an event one time and put his hand on my shoulder. This is pre-COVID, everything. I'm a very, you guys know me now, right? And I turned around and I almost decked him. I mean, it was a very, 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 very embarrassing event for me, right? In my life, very embarrassed. I felt bad for him.
All right, well,
I felt so bad. So I don't reach out to Dan. You know, Fontana, you know, I've never threatened his life, I guess.
in the
So
interest of letting everyone go have dinner, let's wrap up our last agenda item here, which is the review of the February minutes. But thanks, Eric, for doing that recap. And I'm glad we got it done while we still had Ingram here, because I think that was interesting information for everybody.
Yeah.
Review of the February minutes. Lydia did a fantastic job. Did anybody have edits or changes? I will make a motion to approve the February minutes.
Second.
All right. We have no citizens on the line. So motion to adjourn at 7:58.
See you guys.
Everybody gets dinner before 8 o'clock if you hurry.
Thank you.
Go
Night,
Pens.
everyone.
See you guys.
See you
All
guys.
right. Thank you all.